Hey everybody, my name is Jim Farmer. I am the festival director of Out on Film. Thanks for joining us today. This year's edition of Out on Film is a hybrid. We'll have some events in theater and we'll have more events virtual. One of the documentaries that, and everybody who knows me knows I love documentaries. One of the documentaries I really love this year is Euromerica. It's directed by Atlanta's Steven Norris. The film looks at the effects of Eurovision on the United States and why it's not as popular as it should be. So please welcome the director of the film, Steven Norris.
Good morning, or good evening, whenever you're watching this.
Exactly.
Right?
It's funny. What we found with virtual is that people watch it anytime, and they watch it 3 a.m, lunchtime. So thank you. Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. Thanks so much.
Cover it all.
Exactly. I really like this documentary. I mean, it really. I've seen Eurovision before, but like a lot of people, it's not something I've been watching with a lot of regularity for a while. But first of all, just tell me how this project came up for you.
Yeah, so I am finishing up a master's program at Georgia Tech in what is a new program, Global Media and Cultures. It is a combination of media, digital arts, foreign language, and for me, it combined a lot of the things that I'm just really passionate about: learning about the world, popular culture, media, and its effects on everything from politics, social climate. So as part of that program, I knew I wanted to look at Eurovision, something that I started exploring while I was in college and as an undergrad. And originally my plan was to do the sort of standard route, write a thesis. I was working to have some of my work published, and then COVID-19 happened, and my plans I was going to be one of just a handful of researchers that were going to work with the European Broadcast Union at what was the 2020 Rotterdam edition of Eurovision, the 65th anniversary of this contest, and that got canceled. So then I've got to figure out, wow, what am I going to do to complete my program here? And I thought in the endless torrent of Zoom meetings that I was having for what became an online master's program, online for classes and things and such, thought, let me see if I can talk to some of these people that I had been working with Eurovision in terms of researchers and mega fans, if you will, who are included in the documentary, and just see what I can put together. I know I can record these interviews via this digital technology. So that's how it came together. I didn't originally intend to, produce and edit and direct a feature-length documentary, but that's what came of it. And as I started building it, I wanted to really, do justice to the people I had talked to and the information I felt like I was pulling together.
When did you first watch Eurovision?
I came across it in probably 2007. I was an undergraduate at the University of Alabama at the time. I was studying broadcast journalism and international relations, and just through the social networks that I had built and the friendships I would seek out, I was friends with a lot of students from overseas, and had no idea that this happened every May, that Europe stops for a week to celebrate this musical phenomenon, if you will. And so when a couple of my friends from other countries were talking about it, I decided I wanted to check it out for myself, and that's where I first came across it.
It's hugely popular all over the world, except in the United States. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was one of the stats that I really sort of anchored in to launch this idea was a poll that Ipsos did in 2020, where they were looking at the amount of people who watch Eurovision in Europe and then trying to compare that with other countries. And I think it was 94% of Europeans knew about the contest, watched it, in the basic survey that was done. When that was explored in America, it was, I think, second to last on the list behind Japan, with only 6% of Americans having ever said they'd seen Eurovision. So, I feel like it has all the elements to be something that Americans could appreciate in some form or fashion, other than, it really is a display of national and regional cultures. And what I wanted to do in this film is explore why has it not picked up, and is there an opportunity for Americans to learn a little bit more about what this is. And I think the more people start to explore what Eurovision has been historically, when you learn that this is where ABBA had their start, when you learn
Exactly.
where Celine Dion got started too,
Exactly.
I think you start to see, wow, there are entry points for Americans. And I think over the years too, we have really started to consume more things from outside of our sort of traditional American culture bubble. K-pop has really taken our country by storm. A couple of years ago, I think you look at a song like Despacito that was in another language. And I think as America starts to, be, accept and explore new cultural entertainment, there's a real opportunity for Eurovision or Eurovision style programming here in the States.
What would you say the appeal is? Why do people go absolutely, bonkers for Eurovision? And as you said, countries stop.
Yeah, I think if you there's someone in our documentary who actually it turns out one of the world's foremost Eurovision experts. He's launched the most trafficked Eurovision blog. He's a BBC journalist that's originally from Atlanta, and he described this really well as a combination of American Idol and RuPaul's Drag Race. And I think it blends some elements of the Olympics in as well, of it being sort of a national competition where these singers are representing their country. They're not necessarily representing themselves first. So when you put all those things together, the glitz, the glamour, there's an element of it's of course a live contest. So these artists are performing live, but you've only got 3 minutes to sort of stake your claim in the competition. You've got to do as much as you can in that time, and so you'll see scantily clad dancers. You'll see glitter and sparks falling from the ceiling. It's as much about the stage presence as it is about the song, and I think for that reason it makes it just an incredible visual experience, along with the songs that come along with the contest. So I haven't met many people that don't watch and find some element of the contest that they can sink their teeth into.
Do you have a favorite Eurovision moment?
Oh my goodness.
There's so many of them, but
yeah, I mean, it's 65 years of history and music here, so there's a lot to go back on. For me, I love getting to explore maybe a lesser known country through their pop music culture, and so it's really cool for me, at least when I'm watching the Olympics. In the same sense, I really love an underdog story. So
exactly.
somebody who comes out of nowhere, and as the documentary sort of explores, this is a contest that's voted on as well, and I think that is part of the appeal for Europe, is that after all these live performances happen, they open up voting. And so what starts as this pop culture contest has an element of political tension to it, right? So you can't vote for your own country. You have to send your votes to another country. So say if this were happening here in the States and we had an artist from Georgia, we could not vote as Georgia residents. We would have to maybe send our votes to Alabama or New York or Vermont. And so what inevitably happens in the contest is countries sort of form political blocs, and Sweden and Norway vote for each other. They're the Scandinavian neighbors there, so I guess a favorite moment for me would be seeing a song come out of nowhere to win the contest. A couple of years ago, an artist named Jamala from Ukraine won. It was at a time where there was a lot of political tension in Europe over the situation that was happening in Crimea. So Russia and Ukraine were at odds. It was really a division of what was, the political lines that had been drawn in Europe. So Ukraine winning really came out of out of nowhere and was a bit of a surprise, and that was kind of cool to see. I'd have to say too, like as a member of the LGBT community, when Conchita Wurst from Austria won a few years ago, it may be an artist that some people at least, it was, she became known as sort of the bearded lady. It's an artist that transformed their appearance over the past few years. But to see someone so openly blurring the lines of gender to win at this global contest, I thought that was pretty cool too.
Yeah. How have you been able to connect with other fans across the world?
Yeah, so I had a fantastic opportunity to be able to attend the 2018 contest that was held in Lisbon, Portugal, and I think that was my first time to really interact with people physically in the same space. And so I'd met a few people, a few American fans, because what ends up happening at Eurovision is it's a week long. There's two semifinals normally held on a Tuesday and Thursday, and then the grand final on Saturday. So the city that is hosting in Europe puts on a big festival, and fans, flock to whatever city this is. It's sort of an annual pilgrimage for these fans, and there's all kinds of events for you to get to meet other like-minded fans. So attending that conference, attending that contest in Lisbon, I had the opportunity to meet other fans, and when you're in a setting like that and you hear someone who has that American accent, they tend to sort of stick out, because there aren't a ton of American fans, but they are there, and you can find them. There's also a lot of like online forums there's a very strong digital presence for Eurovision in that fan base. You can find all kinds of Eurovision YouTube videos and Facebook groups. And so after attending the contest, I started to get involved with some of these groups, exploring, where is the fandom here in the US, and talking with some of those people.
Exactly. How competitive is it to get tickets?
It's competitive. You have to. These fans know when the tickets are going to be released. They know they're probably planning as soon as the contest ends. But another element of this is that when you win the contest as a nation, you have the opportunity to host the next year. So Italy, who won the 2021 contest, is going through the process, much like the Olympics, of having cities bid to be able to host in 2022. Well, the fans are watching to see how that unfolds. They like to try to predict which city is going to win. That way they can start booking hotel rooms, and the hotel rooms will sell out, for the week that the contest is held. So you have to know when those tickets are going to be released, because oftentimes the live event is held in a arena where there will be limited seating. So you've got to be ready to pull the trigger for those tickets pretty quickly.
Exactly. One of the aspects you deal with really well in this film is the LGBTQ appeal of Euromerica, and LGBT fans across the world. Can you talk a little bit about why Eurovision has such a strong LGBTQ appeal?
Yeah, I think pop culture has always provided a space for people to explore gender and sexuality, and the Eurovision contest in particular has always been an opportunity for artists to sort of push the envelope a little bit, I think the contest really does represent sort of an open space for liberal values, if you will, these ideas that we think of when we think of Europe. So there have been moments where transgender artists have won, openly LGBT artists have won, and those moments are typically happening at the same time where you see, cultural openings in the history of Europe. So I think it has been natural for the LGBT community to find a space of acceptance in Eurovision, in the artists who perform and the songs that they're singing. And when you pull together for a festival like this too, I think it is a feeling like a continent is coming together. And you know, LGBT folks we've always had this space in pop culture fandom, and it's really evident when you start digging into Eurovision and what it is, that the LGBT community is really helping prop up this contest and raise it to the exposure that it has.
So let's talk a little bit about you. I mean, how long have you been in Atlanta? And, can you talk a little bit about, Steven Norris as a filmmaker?
Yeah. Well, I have to say I'm a pretty novice filmmaker. I came to Atlanta about 8 years ago as a journalist changing careers. I started working at the Georgia Institute of Technology. I launched their social media program, and in the back of my head, I'd re-entering the higher ed space after having what I had a good time in college, but maybe didn't apply myself as much as I should have. And so the second time around for this master's program here at Tech, I wanted to really challenge myself, and I was born and raised in Alabama. I thought University of Alabama was the pinnacle of what I might do in my life. And so when I had the opportunity to come to Tech, I dealt with some issues of feeling like, do I belong in a place of such academic caliber? And then when I'm exploring something like Eurovision, it's not standard for what people are doing at Georgia Tech, but I really was lucky to have great advisors and great faculty members who pushed me to challenge what I'd be able to do. And Dr. Karen Head, who was the lead on my committee, really sort of pushed me towards thinking about this documentary film and all the pieces that I had, especially having to consider, this was all shot from my apartment. I had access to archive footage, and people I knew were willing to talk about their experience. And so, I thought let's try to, instead of doing a thesis paper, let's do a thesis documentary film.
Okay.
And I was very lucky that my advisors were on board for that and actively encouraged that. I think I'd also want to, there's a fantastic documentary filmmaker who is on the faculty at Georgia Tech, John Thornton, who really helped me in this process and provided a lot of really good advice. My French advisor, Dr. Stephanie Ballard, in the Modern Languages program at Tech, also has her research based in arts, film, and literature. And so I was really surprised at the people I'd find at Georgia Tech. I know a lot of folks probably think they're science and engineering and computer science, things of that nature. But really, I had a lot of great help to sort of spur this project. And what originally started as, I think, I have to say, I've always been someone who I'm a bit of an overachiever. So we were only supposed to do 10 or 15 minutes for a project like this, but I ended up with an hour, and I couldn't help myself once I started digging in here.
So now that you've been able to pull this off, do you think you'll make another film? Do you think, or what do you see your future as?
Yeah, I've always enjoyed documentaries as a viewer, but having taken a chance on putting one together, I feel like I have a newfound love for the documentary form and what it can do and the stories it can tell. I've always been a storyteller as a journalist. I love getting to meet people and tell their stories. And this was just a different medium for me to be able to tell a story. It's nice, having been a news journalist, you often are looking at a minute and 30, for a standard news package. So it was nice to sort of remove the confines of time to tell a longer story. And I really appreciated that in this sense.
And to be your own editor.
Yeah. Well, that's true. Yeah. And that was I have to say, a part of this that was maybe one of the most difficult is what's going to get cut here, because I could have, as this being something that I'm also really passionate about, I'm a fan of Eurovision as much as I am a researcher here. It was hard for me to cut things, and I want to keep telling the story. But I think this in particular, there's so many stories out there to be told, and they just need people who are willing to tell them. And that's where I think film festivals like this are so fantastic for allowing these stories to be told.
Well, thank you. All right, one more final question. So how do we get to the point where Eurovision is as popular here as it is other places?
Well, that's a really interesting question. For folks who haven't been following along, they may not be aware that NBC is currently working on an American version of Eurovision. This has been in the talks for several years. And so we may be approaching that point where we're seeing this, and it couldn't have timed out more perfectly, at least for me, as what I'm thinking to do as a filmmaker, and what I was hoping would happen, right? And part of what you'll see in the documentary is that I wanted to sort of answer the question: do the American fans want an American version of this contest? And I was a little surprised by the answer, but I think our culture machine here in the U.S. can't see something and not try to. If we see something that's successful, we're going to try to make it happen. And we've seen that with game shows like Survivor or reality shows like Masked Singer, which were both pulled from foreign roots. So it's in development, and we could be seeing that within the next year or so. And my thoughts, at least, are if this is going to be successful here in the States, we've got to figure out how to make it our own, not necessarily to just copy and paste, because what's happening in Europe is firmly footed in a long history of culture and national representation, and it may not work in the same exact format, but to explore this sort of live original songs, maybe the interstate competition, I think could be a really interesting format that we don't have right now of having to sort of support someone besides the place where you live. I'm really intrigued to see if it happens and when it does, because I think it will at some point, how successful it will be, an American Song Contest. Excited to see if, like I said, if that happens and how it turns out. So we'll see how that goes.
The film is Euromerica. It streams as part of Out on Film 34 beginning on September 23rd. We're very, very happy to show the film. And thank you again, Steven Norris, for sharing the film with us and joining us this morning, afternoon, brunch, wherever it is.
Wherever you are.
People are watching it. Thanks so much for your time.
And thank you for your team's work on this film festival. I know you've put a lot of work in.
Thanks so much.